Welcome to another episode of Assess and Caress on Jay Leno's Garage. We have 3 vehicles from the Audrain Museum. Reliable carriers have transported them all the way across from the East Coast, Rhode Island, to about as far as you can go here to Los Angeles, totally unscathed. And they go back tomorrow, so we're very happy with Reliable. Someone I'm not so happy with, of course, Donald Osborne, our assessor and appraiser. What is the topic? Non-American muscle? Is that what we have tonight?
Bravo, non-American muscle.
Non-American
That's exactly
muscle.
it. Now, of course, we will, as I love to do, set the cat among the pigeons.
Right.
And we invite our viewers to respond in the comments about what a muscle car is, but we're not going to get into that discussion.
Right.
For now, we will simply accept the fact that muscle is what we're talking about here.
All right, very good. Tell us the 3 cars we have.
Jay, today we have a 1990 Mercedes-Benz 190e 2.5 Evo II.
Really rolls off the tongue.
It really does.
Yeah,
A
okay.
1978 Aston Martin V8 Canadian Vantage. That'll be important later on.
Right.
And a 1994 Toyota Supra Twin Turbo.
Where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Mercedes.
All right.
This car hails from a period of time that I recall quite well. One of the great heydays of sedan or saloon car racing, as they call it in Europe. And specifically the British Touring Car Championship and the DTM, the Deutsche Tourenwagen Meisterschaft. It was an incredibly close-fought battle. BMW really established itself as a real player in the performance sedan arena with the DTM, and Mercedes, of course, had to respond.
Right, and this is a car that eluded me because they weren't sold in America. You could get a 190E, but that was sold more as a
basic entry-level Mercedes.
Entry-level Mercedes, gas saver, you know, all that kind of thing. So, yeah, I didn't pay a whole lot of interest because in those days, the Mercedes market in America was big V8s, big heavy cars, you know. I always remember a friend of mine went to Europe and he said, in Germany, the taxis are Mercedes, you know, meaning like they're all high-end cars. No, they make all kinds of cars. It's like General Motors. It's as if General Motors only sold the Cadillac and nothing else, and you'd think they're all Cadillacs, you know. But I must say, I was surprised driving this car. It's more BMW-like than a Mercedes. It has Mercedes build quality. It's very well put together. I just never had much interest in a 4-cylinder Mercedes when the V8s was where all the performance was. But once I drove it, I was very impressed.
There are 2 things. One, I'm certainly not an unfan of BMW.
Right.
I am much more of a Mercedes guy than a BMW guy.
Right.
And I love this car.
Right.
I think it's absolutely astonishing. And I think that, frankly, for what it does, especially not just on the racetrack where it was very successful, but here as an homologation special, they obviously had to build a certain number of street cars to homologate the racing versions, and we are the luckier for that. This is a car that also proves that point. We've often had the conversation about the size of engines and what they mean, and the fact that it's like the Ferrari and the V12. A lot of people think, well, Ferrari can only have a 12-cylinder engine, but Ferrari had some of its most important victories in the 1950s with a 4-cylinder engine.
Right.
And the flexibility that a manufacturer can find in choosing exactly the right engine for the application, the latest Ford GT with its V6.
Right.
This is an engine that is incredibly flexible, much like we're fond of talking about the great Chevy small block V8. This is an engine that could go from real fuel-saving commuter around town to race-winning configuration with a multi-valve setup this has.
So it's Mercedes block, crank pistons with Cosworth head cams, 4 valves.
Exactly.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. One of my favorite Mercedes was the E built in the Porsche factory.
Yes, the
They
500E.
Yeah, they built some Mercedes because Porsche was a little down in their luck and they needed to work. And they were just the most amazing cars.
One of the things about this is the fact that BMW, which always had a certain performance reputation, was really trying to break into the luxury car market. Mercedes, that always had the luxury car market, was trying to really establish itself or reestablish itself as a performance car.
Right.
As you said, when you drive this car, you get a very sure sense of the fact that it is a very high performance car, but it feels very much like a Mercedes, no matter what it is that you're driving. And one of the things that's also quite interesting is that, you know, we often see so often on cars for the street for various aesthetic reasons, giant wings, etc.
Right.
And all of the aero effects on this car obviously have a very specific purpose to match the performance of this car. And it's also the stance that this car has. It's much lower than a standard 190 sedan, and even the fender flares are very well integrated into the design. If you saw a stock 190 sedan next to this, you would think, well, is this really the same car?
Right.
It really is.
They only built, what, 500 of these, something like that?
They had to build 500 for the homologation.
Right.
And as you said, they were never sold in the US. And they're extremely rare to find, especially in well cared for, low mileage, unmodified condition. This example is probably one of the best on the planet. It's been driven and maintained, but clearly not abused. And it really is something that really speaks to the entire idea of the family sedan that can be a race winner.
And this was sold as a passenger car because it has a sunroof. That wouldn't have had the sunroof when it was racing.
Absolutely. This is a road car, intended to be a road car, just to homologate the suspension parts and the engine and the aerodynamic parts as well, which had to be available for the buyer on the street.
Yeah, it's a quick car. It's not fast, but the fun is all once you pass $5,000, then the engine really catches up and the 4 valves and the twin cams come into play, and that's when it's really fun. 5 to about 8, almost 8,000 RPM.
And that's another very important point, because you don't typically think of Mercedes as building revvy engines.
Right.
But this is definitely one of those. The fact that this, like the 500e, is a car that you could literally see using every day with a great deal of fun. There's nothing about this car that says, well, it's too temperamental to use, that the suspension is too harsh or it's too noisy inside. It feels and drives like a Mercedes sedan.
And they were all this color, weren't they?
They were all this color.
Yeah. Very
nice.
nice.
Absolutely an amazing piece of kit, as they would say.
Now, what's the next one?
Next, let's talk about the Toyota.
I have to admit, this is a car I sort of ignored when it came out because it's just another car from the 90s, and the 90s were kind of boring. And I thought it was interesting at the time, the twin turbos. I didn't get a chance to drive one, but I must say it holds up exceptionally well, and it still looks current. It doesn't look like a 35-year-old car.
The design of this car is quite amazing, and of course, the performance that this car had in 1994 was outstanding. 320 horsepower in any car was quite dramatic. In a Toyota was unthinkable.
Right.
And of course, the company had established their performance bona fides many years before with the 2000 GT, but a lot of people had forgotten about that. And with the new emphasis on turbocharging, everybody from Porsche, Saab, everyone was using turbos to get power. The fact that Toyota, because their engineers always think sort of ahead of the scheme, utilizing twin turbos to get rid of the worst of the turbo aspects, which is lag, and also add a bit more power so that you could have this really seamless power delivery that twin turbos can give you, was really something. And the finishing also on this car was also another level for Toyota, or that what people thought about Toyota. I mean, obviously, you think about the Lexus cars and all of that. This is a car that could compete quite successfully with the European competition. Literally, I mean, it might sound sort of slightly silly today, but this really could be an alternative to a Porsche 911.
Right.
Because you've got that kind of performance, and you've got the traditional Toyota reliability and serviceability.
And it probably is the most powerful Japanese motor up to that point. Maybe the Century V12, I don't know if that was 320, might have been smoother. But yeah, this is really the big block. This is pretty amazing.
This is a car I've had the opportunity to drive. It is amazing to drive. It feels really terrific. The only thing that slightly lets this particular model down is the fact that this has got a removable top.
Right.
So the top has a tendency to rattle a bit. But the good thing is that, if you wanted open air motoring, you could lift that top section off and it would fit in the back, so you wouldn't have to leave it at home.
And I imagine that's mostly from the rubber wearing away.
It's from the rubber.
Yeah, because it wouldn't have left the factory with
No. Even that is something that is not so incredibly obtrusive that it takes away from the overall driving experience. And as you mentioned before as well, the look of this car is absolutely amazing. I think it's beautifully styled, and I love very much sort of elemental designs. This looks like one of these things that is just sort of extruded in its design. Even the rear wing is very much of a piece of the design. It's not this sort of tacked on boy racer thing.
Well, very nice. Let's go to our third car. I kind of call this a Mustang that went to Oxford. Because it's sort of the basic idea of a Mustang, the long hood, deck, the whole bit here. These have always fascinated me, this Merrick 4-cam V8. I think they're powerful. I'm not sure. I guess they were pretty fast, weren't they?
They were incredibly
Yeah,
fast
I guess they
in
were.
their time. And actually, they're incredibly fast today by any standard.
Yeah.
They're incredibly fast cars. Over 170 miles per hour, you can go in one of these. These are cars that were designed to do things in a very unsubtle way.
Yeah.
This is not the sort of delicate scalpel. This is more the broadsword and the double-sided axe.
Right, and it's classic old school motoring, big front engine, V8. It's probably the most American car ever built in England up to this point.
Absolutely.
It harkens back to everything American. Those tires look massive. There's so much meat to those tires. You're so used to those low-profile tires now. I didn't know what size those are. This is pretty interesting.
These are very big tires, and even not just the size of the sidewall, which you don't see today, they're incredibly wide for the time as well. And this is a car that really, to me, encapsulates the idea of a non-American muscle car. You and I have discussed this Aston V8 coupe and convertible shape. Among my favorites in this was the very first car with the DBS, which still had the DB6's inline
Right.
double overhead cam 6-cylinder engine, because shockingly the new V8 engine was not ready yet
Right.
when they were going to introduce the car. And that's a very different car with a very different driving dynamic and very different aesthetic. But these cars are very much sort of the British bulldog, in your face, we're going to make it happen.
Right. I think the Viper Coupe would probably be the closest to this. You know, being a V10 and 450 horsepower, same sort of thing. But it's still a good-looking car.
It's a great-looking car. They're also wonderful to drive. Again, the driving experience is very, I have to describe it as American, because the power is absolutely seamless. You put your foot down
Right.
from the very lowest revs all the way through. And this is obviously a manual model. They also came as automatics, and the automatics are not tragic.
Right.
But with the proper manual gearbox, they're just absolutely amazing. And these engines are also extremely tunable.
Right.
It is not unusual to have, this is a 6-liter engine. There are modifications, take it out to 6.1, 6.2
Right.
liters. And I mentioned before in introducing the car, this is a Canadian Vantage.
Right.
Now, the Aston Martin V8 was the standard coupe, put out somewhere in the neighborhood of 320 horsepower. So they had their high performance version, the Vantage, which put out 390 horsepower, which again, a fairly substantial jump for the performance version. And they never sold the Vantage model in North America, largely due to emissions regulations.
Right.
But Aston Martin in 1978 did a very small run of V8 coupes with the Vantage look. So the standard V8 coupe has this hood bulge, but with a functional hood scoop. The Vantage cars have a slightly higher hood scoop, which is blocked off just
Right.
simply to clear the engine, and with a little ducktail spoiler on the rear end as well.
And this is Victor Gauntlet. He was running
Yes.
the
He owned the company at this
at
point.
that point. Yeah.
This is a very desirable car because it has that very limited production aspect of them. However, as I said, these engines are very tunable, and this car, as was the case in many of these, have actually now been uprated to the full Vantage spec.
Right.
Now that you don't have to worry about the emissions situation. And the other very interesting thing about this is that the changes that you see on this car were also incorporated into the cars for the world. Just like the Porsche world has their dots and other secret things. One of the funniest things is that the cars produced in late 1978 into early 1979 are called the Oscar India cars. It's like, wow, that's very mysterious. It simply stands for OI, October Introduction.
Oh, I see.
But it's something that sort of makes you an instant insider, as it were.
Right.
This is a car that is incredibly rewarding to drive and also quite beautiful. And for a very long time, the values of the V8s lagged behind those of the previous DB series.
Still do.
Yeah, but they're no longer inexpensive.
Right, right. All right, so let's see. Now we have to make our choice, which has...
Let me recap what we've got here.
Okay.
We've got a 1990 Mercedes 190e 2.5 16 Evo II. We have a 1978 Aston Martin V8 Canadian Vantage and a 1994 Toyota Supra Twin Turbo.
All right, now this one is my favorite of these three, although that's second. These have just gone crazy. They only built 500 of them. They were $85,000 new. I think they've just gone through the roof. So I would go this one first. The Toyota second, because in America, that's kind of the hot car. If you're a Radwood guy, that makes you the star when you pull it in the show. They all go like this. And the Aston Martin would probably be third. I'm just taking a guess, but just seeing, they only built 500 of these. It's a world famous car. Every European magazine, every American magazine, they always think this is just unbelievable. So I'll go this one first, Toyota second, this one third.
All righty.
What say you?
I say I'm going to check the numbers before I get it wrong.
Notice I did not do any checking.
Oh, God bless you. About 5 years ago, if you were looking for one of these Toyotas, it would probably have set you back at about $130,000. Today, to find one like this, especially with the removable top, the Targa top car, would be about $250,000.
Okay.
The Aston, this car about 5 years ago would have been about $415,000. Today, the market is slightly cooled for these cars, so it'd be about $400,000 for this car today. Still makes it an amazing buy for what it is, the rarity, the performance, and the great looks. The Mercedes, about 5 years ago, one of these might have been found for about $425,000, and today it would be $525,000.
Okay.
So the actual winner of the appreciation sweepstakes
Is the seller.
is the Toyota.
Toyota.
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew that, but I just saw how crazy. I saw one of these for $800,000, and I thought, okay. But yeah, but this one is still third, I guess. So
Yeah.
all right, that's pretty good, considering I did not use any notes. I just had to go with off the top of my head. But,
And the top of your head is a grand place to be, Mr. Leno.
that's right, and you saw what happened at the top of his head. You could just look. But there you are. But anyway, Donald, thank you. Thank you for doing these. He does a wonderful job picking all these cars and coming up with the categories, and all I have to do is show up and make some stupid guesses. So Donald, thank you very much, my friend.
My pleasure,
And
Jay.
we'll see you at the Audrain Museum sometime.